Hey, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, well, it's a few hours before midnight, but before it changes over. But any thoughts about today, tomorrow, last year, the next decade, the last decade?
Well, I mean, I didn't think that I was going to be thinking about it at all because we have things that we're doing and we have things that occupy our time
Quite a
and
bit, yeah.
energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just figured it was and we're not going out or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. So I just figured it was going to just be kind of another day and transition. And then it suddenly hit me that it's not only going from 2019 to 2020, but we're leaving the 2010s.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like something needed to be said.
I guess so,
So
yeah.
that's why we're here doing this table talk.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working on two pieces right now that will hopefully come out in the next couple of weeks. One is about folie à deux, which is shared psychosis, and one is about it's just going to be a sort of a compilation of kind of a what's what of 2020.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's going to be artistically done, hopefully pretty powerful, not very long. Just
Mm-hmm.
kind of representing like where we're headed as a platform
Mm-hmm.
in the future.
I've been in such heads down mode with like promotion and marketing,
Mm-hmm.
book of hours, and so I just wrote an long email newsletter, and I wanted to go back and look at the 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 numbers on that, but so that's I'm getting into the weeds now. So I'm just kind of heads down and in the weeds. That's why I'm talking about the weeds, I guess. We're we for those of you, just to let you know, we've also started a business to support Book of Hours from a production standpoint. It's
And
still
it's
not.
gone through a couple of iterations.
Yeah.
We've never made money on it,
Yeah.
but we needed something. Book of Hours is our creative outlet, and we do have Patreon pledges, and we have received some donations. So, once again, thank you for that. Um, and this other business that we started, it was basically to legitimize us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we got
It was, yeah.
a tax ID number and things
Right.
like that.
Well,
But we haven't made any money at it.
we haven't, and it's
If
sort of
anything,
our
we've lost money
right.
at it.
We did, yeah. It's our forward. It's our public face kind of thing. I mean, because it's like we can do things with Book of Hours that you couldn't do if you were in business, and so our other business, we're working on redoing that as well. So I've just been in the weeds of like marketing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, because at our age, what's happening is we are, we don't have a retirement. We're, middle aged, and we're one of those statistics where a $50 emergency will throw us into the clink.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
we are really, really desperate. So we have to do something really, really powerful and really, really creative in order to keep our head above water.
Mm-hmm.
So that we can start paying, bills, and we can start keeping the lights on and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not doing this because this is just fun stuff. We're doing it out of necessity and desperation.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where we are right now.
And we started Book of Hours. I was working in the corporate world, and with the intention that it would become something that was more than just a hobby, or more than just like what we originally started out as. I mean, it's changed quite a bit since we started, and it's been fun, and it's been very interesting journey, and we've taken it in the last 6 years, so most of the last decade.
Well, no, I mean, Book of Hours has only been around since 2016.
Oh, okay, you're right. So it's
Yeah.
only been
It's
3.
only been 3 years. But our lives have gone through much more in the last 10 years
Oh, yeah.
than most people deal with many lifetimes.
Yeah.
You know,
I
just
yeah,
tragedy after
I
tragedy
know.
after tragedy.
And I feel like I've had a midlife, not a midlife crisis, but just I've gone through all the things that most people do, but on steroids.
Yeah, same here. I mean, you were saying that before we knew each other or anything like that, in 10 years ago, when you were bringing in 2010, you brought in 2010, December 31st, 2009. By February of 2010, so just a couple months after New Year's, your wife of decades just announced that it was time to get a divorce,
Yeah.
like out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And ever since then, it's just kind of been one tragic event after another, for you as well as for me.
Yeah.
I mean, we both went through a process called no contact. This is my third holiday of going no contact with my family. This was your first holiday of going no contact. And when we say no contact, we literally mean, no contact, no phone calls, no emails, no Facebook, no nothing.
Yeah.
Like just falling off the face of the earth and becoming nothing
Yeah.
to these people.
And I didn't. We're on a Facebook page that's for children or survivors of narcissistic parents or relationships, and I was noticing people were saying, yeah, I got the call. Like, can we see you? Can we make up? Can we get back together?
Sure.
That kind of thing from the family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get that this year, which was fine with me. I'm glad. What I did get, though, was last March in 2019. I got an email from my mother saying, can we make up? And I was like,
Well, no.
no, because I was still very hostile, very angry with what had happened last Christmas.
Right. And so a lot of people, and I'm hoping that 2020 reveals this about our society and the misgivings and the miseducation and all of the things that we learn about what family is and what society is. I'm really hoping that 2020 will present even a greater reveal than the last few years have for people in general. So we're looking at both of us having never been supported. We weren't born into a meritocracy. We were never given the tools in order to become the things that we should have been.
Yeah.
We both would be in completely different places right now, financially, culturally, career-wise, and in our lives, if we had had parents who supported us in our talents and put the tools in our hands in order to make those talents
Right.
Work for us so that we could actually earn a living at them. Instead, we were scapegoated, we were set up to fail, we were compromised all the time.
Or given a real lack of direction, no
Total
direction.
lack of direction. Lots of confusion, lots of these kinds of things. Well, you can do whatever you want. We support whatever you want. And then turning around and doing nothing.
Or undermining it.
And completely undermining and
Yeah.
trying to sabotage our success, which is what the state does to people,
Right.
to the civilians
Right.
in this country. Telling the civilians you can do and be whatever you want, and then turning around and withdrawing the social safety nets in order to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that this will be an even greater reveal in the next decade. I'm hitting that weird number that all women are terrified of. It just occurred to me, that this is the decade that happens for me.
Well, this decade, in just a few years, you pointed out that I'm hitting the 6-0 mark, so...
In a few years,
Yeah.
and so here we are at our age with no career behind us, no financial stability, nothing to support us, and so we've had to reinvent ourselves over and over and over and over again throughout our lives
In order to survive.
And so that's basically what the last decade represents for us, is survival.
Mm-hmm.
Being Generation X is like, basically, since I can remember, since the time I was born, I've been in survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
I've been scratching at and clawing my way through to try to reach for that success. And I think right now I'm done clawing and trying to prove myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's either you fucking support me and get on board with my vision, or get the fuck out of my way, because I'm a
Right.
little bit sick
Mm-hmm.
of the privileged people in this world not respecting our vision.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm definitely, I've been sick for a long time of, the parasitic operations that go on in our government.
Mm-hmm. Well, and parasitic people that seem to somehow find their way into our lives.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, they really do.
And like you were saying something about reinventing yourself. I mean, just this past decade, I had to reinvent myself twice. Just this decade.
Right. Yeah.
And I've before that I probably reinvented myself 4 different times, just to find a means of either making a living or getting along or something.
Right.
And what we found is I'm hoping that this is sort of like it for a while, that we don't have to do a reinvention like more often than we've had to do. I think we've kind of hit our stride in some ways in terms of like how we see ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, how that translates into survival or making a living or whatever is another story. But I feel like we finally found the direction that we've been seeking with each other, personally, and in our relationship, and in our work, and our partnership and our work. We this past year, 2019, I said this in my email, was we discovered a new way to create our videos and a new aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
One that was dubbed by somebody else video essays, and I really like that term.
Right.
And then we're also considering something that I've been conceiving for a while, and that is we'll get into audio narratives that are just as rich, I'm hoping,
Mm-hmm.
as our video.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll be narrative, not nonfiction.
Right.
And so I feel like we have a good direction in that respect.
Right.
It's just so much going on, and like Julie said before, we're scraping by. I'm working a job that is
It doesn't pay anything.
Doesn't pay enough to really
making less than $10,000 a year.
I mean,
it's not enough to survive on.
It basically pays some bills, but it's and it's part time, so it allows us to work
Right.
on our own stuff. But it takes enough time away from me to distract me from doing my work as well. Right now, it's just kind of like, well, it's there, and the sooner I can get out of it, the better.
Mm-hmm.
And I've only been doing this about a year and a quarter now, so it's time for a raise. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it's time to stop doing it, and we'll get there. But it's just, I'm hoping that within the next year, the next 2 years, that we will hit that. One more point on that respect is we've been in Pittsburgh now a year and almost a half.
Right.
Almost
a year and a few months.
Yeah, a year and almost a half.
Mm-hmm.
So we're hitting that sort of mid-mark. Somebody told me before I moved to San Francisco, or from San Francisco, told me that when you move to a new city, it takes about 3 years to get settled and find your place and hit your stride. And we're about at that halfway mark. And we've, to tell you the truth, and I think people who live around here who are very insular, and this is a very strange place, are amazed at how much we've seen and how much we've done. And I'm kind of amazed at how much we've done too, because this past year we were both settling into a new house, into a new community. I was working a new kind of job, and we were making all these strides with our artwork.
Right.
you know, with Book of Hours.
We took Book of Hours into a completely different direction, which for whatever reason we had hit that creative wall when we were in San Francisco. And it's probably just for the sole purpose that, or for the sole reason that we were in San Francisco, and it's just so distracting because of all of the wonderful, you know, things that you can do there, bike rides to the beach, mountains, just all of the culture,
and
the music.
We lived around the corner from
the Independent.
Yeah,
you
a
know?
world-class nightclub.
World class. Like, we could just fall out of our apartment and go see, like, some of the best, like, indie pop shows, you know, modern music. We're really, really into modern music. We don't know anybody who has the kind of musical taste that we have. So that's something that we're going to be cultivating, too, here in Pittsburgh, because the music here sucks.
Yeah. Well, even in San Francisco, we didn't know a lot of people that liked the same kind of music.
Yeah, in San Francisco, they were still into, you know, bullshit music.
Well, that's, I think, the way it is everywhere. It's like, I don't get why...
Well, that's why we don't consider ourselves Americans. Like, it's really... We're really, really, like... we don't subscribe to anything about this country. It feels like not the way that people treat each other. There's some real lack of intellect here. They're even in San Francisco too, where you've got, you know, the mecca of, you know, intelligence. It seems like, and even there, it's like, wow.
Yeah, it's lacking
really
so much they have to create artificial intelligence.
You know,
no, kidding.
So it's just. We just don't really, you know, we're more international, I guess. If we didn't have to live here, we probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'm convinced of it. We don't engage in the electoral process. We don't give fealty to billionaires who claim that they want to save us when they've actually only ever taken from us our entire lives. So we don't believe, you know, the narrative that everyone else seems to believe.
Yeah.
There's a lot of brainwashed people in this country, a lot of brainwashed people in the coastal cities that have all the money, and then, of course, all the places in between for different reasons.
Yeah.
And we're somewhere outside of that, of those paradigms. Like, we simply don't fit in here in this country. And I think that 2020 is going to reflect that in our work more and more as we step out into, you know, more and more creative territory, and we start to really offer powerful messages on our Book of Hours platform that is different than what people are used to. And of course, different doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be accepted. But it's, you know.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping, so also I think in our creative realm, I mean, we've got several things going on. You know, you've got the writing that you want to do, and audio. You've suggested that I up the amount of content I create for my Pylon Studios brand, meaning my visual art, my painting, and things like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I agree, and so we're going to do. You may or may not have seen a video of me producing some work. Visual art, you know, painting, drawing. I work in mixed media, so it's, you know, drawing, painting, collage, whatever. And I was working on a piece that actually was 4 pieces at the same time, but you know, working on a big piece of paper that turned into 4 pieces of paper. And so there's a video out there, and Julie suggested to me that I try to start doing more of that because people like seeing it.
Yeah, so you have to really focus on the things that define you. And you know, there's a really good tell there. I mean, it's like whenever you do something creative and whenever you share it, it gets, like on your Facebook page or whatever, it gets crazy exposure. Like, it gets shared, it gets you know, liked and all that stuff, but then when you do something that doesn't really truly define you, it's like crickets. You can't get anyone to look at it. And of course, I know that there are algorithms in place, and there's suppression in social media and all that, but I still do believe truly, like as the old saying goes, you know, if you love it and if it really defines you, it's going to be what makes you a success. And so I think we went through some serious iterations with Book of Hours too, where we tried to we tried to mirror what some other people were doing, where we would just sit in front of the camera
Mm-hmm.
and talk about current events or political stuff. And we just were not, like, people just were not responding to that
Yeah.
at all in the way that they would respond to others. You know,
Right.
other people would get hundreds of thousands of shares and likes, and we would maybe get like 2. You know,
Yeah,
and
10 views
and
and
it's
2
because
shares. And,
it wasn't us, and
Right.
so we started to develop Book of Hours into more video essays and storytelling. So much so that this powerful one that we made called Expulsion,
mm-hmm.
which was about a San Francisco mural that was slated to be destroyed. It was shared with the Alumni Association in
Of the high school where
of the high school where the mural
Mhm.
is,
Mhm.
and the mural was built during the WPA era by Victor Arnatoff, and our video, along with some very strong responses of other people, were part of a collective that kept the mural from being destroyed. And so that is an incredibly powerful accolade
Mm-hmm.
for us. I mean, and I don't think we talk about our own successes enough.
Right.
You know, we stopped an 80-something-year-old mural from being destroyed. We did that. You and I, Julie and JP,
Right.
at Book of Hours. We created a video essay
That-
that talked about the importance of historical references in these murals, and it changed the course of history. You
Right.
know, that's
kind of
really fucking powerful.
It is. It is.
Like, you really have to think about that. And I
Right.
think we get so bogged down in the fact that, you know, we moved into this community where we get taken advantage of. We've been lied to. People owe us money. They haven't paid us. We've worked our asses off. We've had eggs thrown at our house because we're trying to work on a community garden. We've been, you know, we've had veiled threats against us. We've been lied about, slandered. You know, so all this
name it,
stuff
yeah.
has happened over the last year or so that we've been in this community. That it's overshadowed the successes,
Mm-hmm.
which is that we fucking changed history in San Francisco.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, we have to get back to that. I think in 2020, and so I encourage everybody to go there. You know, like, think of all the successes that you've done with your podcasting or whatever it is that you've done out there that has changed people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether you're building a cabin in the woods or whether you're podcasting at your desk in your office.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you're doing, you're changing people's lives, and you know, that needs to be lifted up. You know, you need to be really, really proud of your successes in
Mm-hmm.
that. It
Yeah.
feels like the next decade or so, it feels like entering into the 2020s is going to be a very bizarre world. Like, I think we see a glimpse of bizarro world with the Kid Up movement and the
Mhm.
whole climate change thing with Greta Thunberg. And I think that we're going to see an even more bizarre version of that coming ahead. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are going to be absolutely confused.
They already are, and
And
it's
they're
just going to get
already
worse.
confused.
Yeah, because the rhetoric and the marketing and advertising that's coming at us from very sophisticated people.
I mean, they go to school to psychologically, like, lift your
Mhm.
your ability to think for yourself.
Well, they're
And then
actually
they
using-
actually, like,
Yeah, they're
produce
they're using all the sophisticated tools that have been developed over the last 100 years to basically create social engineering that will affect not only the climate but the economy and how we will live our lives.
right.
And now I'm not talking about, like, you know, we're going to have to necessarily... all the claims of climate change, I think, are overblown myself personally. And I think what's going on is there is such a thing as climate change, but it's coming in the form of pollution and environmental degradation and the killing off of species. I don't believe that it's coming through global warming per se. I think that that is being done to us, and that there's something called geoengineering that comes in many different forms.
Mm-hmm.
We just learned of one last night that I hadn't even heard of before, and it was like,
Cloud seeding?
well, I knew about cloud seeding. We know about SAIs, which are basically, what people have been calling chemtrails, which is incorrect, but it's a practice called stratospheric aerosol injection, which is basically those crisscrosses that you see in the skies. But there's also ionospheric heaters, and this is scientifically proven. I mean, it's there's scientific papers written on this, that it is up there. They're doing this. They're heating up the atmosphere, and through microwaves, and so all these things point, like geoengineering is about a number of things. One of them is cloud seeding, stealing rain, and this is documented.
And supported and very well funded.
Yeah, right. But see, and as well as
by the military,
as well as their geoengineering is set up to reflect the sun. So they're creating cloud cover to reflect the sun to cool the planet. But the planet, I don't think, needs the cooling that they say it does. But what it does do is it poisons the land and water through particulate matter. It covers the sun so that you can't grow food. It
makes the fires burn hotter.
The metals and particulates are responsible for a lot of the heat intensity of the fires that have been burning, like in California and Australia.
Right.
And you talk like this, and people think you're nuts.
Well, I don't think
but,
so.
There's
I think more and more people are
but the thing,
it.
And the thing is it's like I don't feel like I'm like being Chicken Little about it. I don't feel like I'm like being conspiratorial about it.
Mm-mm.
I'm actually talking about things that are documented and things that you see and things that are actually taking place. And I feel like all these things add up to these things are being done to us. Right. And I did a video several years ago where I said that. I said, without the documentation or without the knowledge of all these other things, I just felt like it was all pure propaganda. So not only do we have the propaganda coming at us from the billionaires and the people who say that they're looking out for us, like the Al Gores and the Bill McKibbins and all and of course Greta now, all those people, they've done nothing about global warming. All they've done is yell about it. And then when you tell people about like an alternative to that, they say, well, you don't have the answer. Well, that's a negative attitude. Mm-hmm. Well, what do you think Al Gore's been saying for 25 years, 30 years? It's a negative message, and yet everyone thinks he's awesome.
Right.
So clearly this is propaganda coming at us, and it's very well tailored. And again, like I said, it's something that is being... They're using all the tools that they've developed over the last 100 years in advertising and marketing. And I used to be in marketing, so I understand, marketing is not just about like, tailoring messages. It's about understanding the numbers, of like how these things are effective, what's effective, and where it's effective, and how it can be used. And there's data that supports all these marketing efforts that have gone on for the last 60 to 100 years.
Right. I think where we come from in our platform is that, we'll offer this insight, we'll offer this information, and we get two responses, which is what's the answer, how do you fix it, and who is going to lead us into fixing it. And our response is always this: there is no answer. You're living in this really bizarre, toxic world where they are financializing and monetizing you while they kill you slowly. It's how you live through that in the time that you have on the planet that matters, because you cannot take on this level of ingenuity. There's $100 trillion that is behind these green these green technologies, for instance, not to mention the financialization of, all of our social safety nets. So not only are they going to monetize us and say that our carbon footprint, we need to pay for our own carbon footprint to the tune of $100 trillion. But now they're saying we need, we're going to need to pay for our Medicare, and we're going to need to pay into our Social Security benefits, and more and more and more and more will be turned back into this sort of serf lord relationship where we are literally working and toiling our lives away while sympathizing with our oppressors, and that's what's happening. And it's happening really strongly now. So I think what's happening is a lot of people come across our work, or they come across our opinions or our comments, and they say, well, then what's the answer? And they don't like our response, which is that there really is no answer.
Right.
Okay, you are an autonomous human being. You are the god of your own life and future. Take responsibility for yourself and for your community if you can. Encourage people to look and help each other through mutual aid and direct democracy. Fall off of the electoral system. Do not play fealty to these billionaires or these so-called candidates who are basically just actors being manipulated by the billionaires.
Reject capitalism.
And stop looking for a goddamn fucking motherfucking hero.
Yeah,
Stop looking for fucking heroes. There are no heroes.
No.
And, I've been told that I've been a nihilist, that I have a really nihilistic attitude.
No, you don't.
And that I'm really dark and all this stuff. And it's like, no, I'm living in reality.
No, what's actually happening is your light is being covered.
Right.
Your light is being covered. It's not that you're dark.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
You are being covered by the propaganda and the shit that's going after voices like ours.
Right.
When we do try to reveal what's going on out there, and
I think the 2020s, and I think that in the decades that are coming, I think it's going to be very, very bizarre. I mean, look, you have literally got, let's use Nancy Pelosi, for instance. I am not kidding. When they were talking about the whole impeachment thing, and they said, and a reporter said to her, in a very, normal way, it spoke to her in a way that we could all understand, which is, okay, impeachment is now been voted on. It's passed. The next step is to go to trial. When is that happening? And her response was gibberish. It was literally gibberish. She was like, well, managers have to be put in place, and you may as well ask me to go play in the snow. It was like listening to somebody who is mentally lost their capacity to engage in a conversation. And we've met people like this around here coming off of deep trauma and drug addiction, where you cannot have an intelligent conversation with them because of the trauma and the drug addiction in their life. You literally cannot have an intelligent conversation with them. That's what it's like with the Bernie Sanders, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Mike Pences. We're talking about people that do not have the capacity to be remotely intelligible. I can't even describe to you.
I think, I think in the case
so insane.
Yeah, I think in the case of Nancy Pelosi and these other politicians, is it's not so much that they don't have the capacity to be understood. It's that they're manipulating their message because they are narcissistic and sociopathic.
So
right?
This is what narcissists and sociopaths
exactly,
do.
Right. So when they're confronted with something, they throw up a distraction. And oftentimes it comes out as gibberish. I mean, we've both experienced it firsthand.
Right. And I've watched, personally, a situation happened to me where it was nothing but gibberish and emotion, and then a bunch of lies were told about me. And the so-called justice system believed the gibberish and the lies instead of the facts, which is that I was the victim of something,
Right.
And instead, as the victim, I got the punishment because I was a victim, because I was made a victim because of the gibberishy psychopathic ramblings of a nut job.
Right.
And so that's what we're dealing with. We're literally the victims of gibberishy psychopathic nut jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to shame me into voting for these people.
Right, exactly. And I think
you've got to be out of your fucking mind.
And I think the other thing that we're going to see then, you were saying we're going to be seeing more bizarro world kind of, scenarios, and in that I think is what's going on is we are going to see what you just described that happened to you personally writ large. Like, it's already taking place, but it's going to be even more so. And it's all going to be taking place.
It happened right across the street from us with this girl.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's already happened.
Yeah, so these are going to take place in smaller doses, but they're also going to be, mass actions as well. And, it's already taking place, and we're going to see it through shaming in social media. We're going to see it through scapegoating. And we've both experienced this in the workplace and in our lives. And so what we've been experiencing personally, I think, is going to be happening more to everybody at the same time, not just individuals. I think because what I've experienced in my career in the recent years, why I'm no longer working as a designer in the corporate world, is why a lot of people my age are not doing that as well. We met some people here that experienced the same thing that I experienced. It's like once you hit a certain age, and you didn't become a manager, or whatever, you didn't follow some sort of track, that they don't need you anymore. They don't want you anymore because you're a threat because of your experience. You're a threat because of your age. You're a threat because you know more than other people. And that's going to be happening to more and more of us. And I'm sorry, it's just that's the way it's going to be.
Just the way
and so we need to, what we're trying to tell you is you need to start preparing yourself for those kinds of things to start happening. How are you going to do that? So start thinking about how it is you're going to respond. I don't want you to react. I would like you to respond, because reaction is you're already on the defense.
Right.
So you don't want to be defensive. You want to understand how to push the energy back to that person. You take it's sort of like I've been telling Julie, it's like Tai Chi, where it's a martial art that uses other your opponent's energy against them.
Right.
And this is something that we all have to learn how to do mentally as well as politically and socially. Understand how to do that.
Right. I feel like that we do that. We exercise that type of action, where we're using our opponent's energy against them. I feel like we do it through our artwork and through our podcasting and our message. Especially, well, not so much the podcasting, but the video essays that we create, like with Greta Sales, and with expulsion, and also with the restriction of movement.
Right. The reason, the thing I liked about Greta Sales is it's funny, it's animation, and it's short. It's one of the shortest things we've ever produced.
Took forever though. Took a long time.
Well, animation takes a long time.
Yeah, animation takes a long time.
The nice thing about it is you can easily use it in response to something, and because it's short, we tend to get people looking at it more than if it was a longer piece. And it's really quick. And the thing is it's so quick that I don't think people get it right away, and so they just dismiss it. But I think that's what I like about it, though. I like that it's quick and that it's like to the point, and it uses humor to talk about these things. So yeah. What
do you think's going to happen in 2020? Name just a few things in your opinion that you think is going to happen that should be either maybe a surprise to people or maybe it won't be a surprise.
Well, what we're seeing with the financialization of people is just going to get higher and higher, or more harder and harder. I mean, right now, what we've seen in the past was that, we were required to carry health insurance, and that built up the medical industrial complex, which is huge here in Pittsburgh. I mean, it's we see the result of that. We didn't see it as much in San Francisco, although it's there.
Right.
It just wasn't as pervasive as it is here.
Right.
Because it replaced the steel industry.
Right.
We had other industries that were out and about, but what we're going to see is through this whole effort to make people get
like carbon credits,
shots,
vaccinations.
Inoculations. They're now requiring the two most populous states in the nation have requirements for parents to have their children vaccinated, no exceptions.
Right.
Not even the fucking Amish can get out of it.
Right.
And this is they've made it so that it's very expensive to do this. So it's going to do a couple things. One is it's going to make a shit ton of money for the vaccination the companies that make vaccines, and their investors. And two, it's going to do what has been going on for a long time, and that is target and attack the poor who cannot afford these things.
Right.
Right. I mean, I was a victim of the whole health insurance issue.
Yeah, you had to pay thousands of dollars in taxes because of Obama's mandated health program called Obamacare,
right.
which people were celebrating, and meanwhile they're not realizing they're celebrating fascism. To force somebody to pay for something that they can't afford, force them to do it, and then it's punitive if you don't
do it. And
it's
also,
fascism.
Well, and paying for a product that is subpar.
Right, so you're paying into something that doesn't cover anything. Was basically what Obamacare was.
Because that's why I couldn't afford to pay for something that was shit that wasn't going to give me any coverage.
It didn't give you anything.
And because I was a contractor, meaning I was working, picking up jobs.
So you'd work for 3 months, be off for 6.
Yeah. And I was working for employment agencies that would place me in these corporate settings. This went on for years. And it went on for years, and I was on and off with employment, and sometimes I'd have insurance, and sometimes I wouldn't. And it was fortunate that I got sick while I was being covered that one time.
Yeah.
But this has been a problem for a lot of people, and it really fucked me over financially, and it's fucked a lot of people over financially. Now, I mean, the Trump administration actually did away with that.
Yeah.
That requirement.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm not a fan of Trump at all. But what I'm trying to say is that I think they got to a point where it's like, okay, well, we can't really make any more money from this, so it'll be fine if we get rid of this.
Right. So this is why we have the buildup of all of these University of Pittsburgh Medical Center buildings that are decimating like local businesses in order to build out these like behemoth buildings all over Pittsburgh, is because of Obama's mandated healthcare program. That's how these medical industrial complexes get built up.
Right. So we're going to see.
We're going to see more of that.
Yeah, we're going to see more of these things that are requirements, or that are like going to force people to pay for something that they don't need or want. And just the whole vaccine thing is ridiculous, because they've set it up so that the argument is, the people who are anti-vax or pro-vax, and the people on the anti-vax side, or even the questioning the whole practice, that are saying, well, they're not effective, or they have the stuff that's in those vaccines is bad for you, and it's like, well, yeah, that's true, but the real issue, which has been covered up because of this other issue, these other issues that are put out there, right? So that people are arguing over. The real issue is the forcing of people to start having to get these vaccines, and the amount of money it's going to cost. And so that's the real issue at hand.
Right.
But again, because of the sophistication of the people who are in charge, they understand how to make deals and then spin them and sell them to the public, or make it so that the people who are opposing them get completely, what's the word, they're made to look, stupid or crazy. Discredited. Yeah. Thank you. And this is the kind of thing that we're going to see even more of.
I would imagine. Yeah. In every way, and so weird shaming that goes on, you know, the infighting that goes on. I mean, I feel that every belief system, I mean, I really don't care if you are Marxist or if you're anarchist or if you're trans or whatever. It's like we really need to get our shit together and come together as a society and as a civilization. Or and because we're so
And just drop this whole idea of having leaders.
right, and just drop it like it's hot. Drop it like a hot potato because
Right.
it is going to burn the fuck out of you. There's, you know, one thing I want to bring up in the thing that I eventually want to produce called the Folie à Deux, which is shared psychosis, is that there was a program in Germany in the 1970s and 80s that ended up paying out, you know, a lot of money to people who were victimized by this program. And it literally, I'm telling you, it literally translates to deconstruction or decomposition.
Decomposition, yeah.
It literally translates to decomposition. It's called Sitzung or something.
Mm-hmm. And it was a program that was initiated by the Stasi, the secret police in East Germany.
Right, and we're not talking like the 1940s. We're talking
1970s
like the
and 80s.
1970s and 80s
Yeah.
in my lifetime.
Yeah, and because they were German, they kept track of every little piece of data of you know what they did and how they did it and who they did it to.
Right, and so unlike that, we have these same kind of programs that are being, you know, that are in full operation in through the CIA, and we've got people on record going, yeah, they just destroyed everything. Like, there's very little proof about any of this because the CIA learned from Germany not to keep the records,
right.
You know. Yeah, it's called Sitzungen or something like that. It literally translates to decomposition. So imagine that this is what's happening to us, is that all of these movements, whether it's the vaccine industry or the green movement or the war industry or the medical industrial complex or the prison industrial complex, all these complexes and all these industries, like, the goal is to decompose society. And when you think of decompose, you think of rot, you think of death, you think of dying off, you think of cultures dying off. You know, people can't come together and coalesce when they're constantly being splintered and decomposed. And they start with your brain. They start with suspending your belief in intellectual argument.
Right.
And it's, you know, I think, and 9/11 was the big Reichstag moment, which forced people into their suspension of understanding how, you know,
Physics.
heat and metal work together in physics. It's like you literally had to suspend your physics classes in order to believe the official 9/11 narrative.
You know, and to not believe all these engineers and architects coming together and signing a petition saying, look, we design and build these things, and we're telling you that this didn't work, and yet people are willing to believe a handful of scientists that come out and say, you know, carbon is what's causing the degradation of our climate, while ignoring the pollution aspect of it. And you know, and the propaganda that goes towards whatever narrative they want to push. So in the case of, you know, carbon, they push it so that, you know, you're crazy if you question that, and say that it's something else. In the case of 9/11, they make it so that those who question the physical applications of a fire, an office fire, taking down a structure that was built to survive a plane attack. I mean, they built those structures so that they would survive. Because they were so tall, the scenario was there that a plane could strike this building, and they built it in such a way so that it would survive that.
Right.
And yet, we're told that
Planes hit
planes
it
hit
and
it, and
brought
so
Yeah.
it burned and brought it down, which doesn't explain, and we're getting in the weeds here, but why another building which wasn't hit and which wasn't on fire came down.
Like crushed.
Right.
Like demolition. So
Yeah.
it was obvious like demolition. I mean, there's old video of 1991 or I'm sorry, of 2001. You know, there's video of it where you can literally see like part of the building exploding before the plane even hits it. So, you know that it's controlled demolition, and then there's, of course, all of the build up to it. Suddenly China buying our steel at, half a cent on the, you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
like so many pieces were in place, and the propaganda was right there to pick it up, and spin the narrative. So
and so and
that was our moment where our capacity to actually think suspended, like it left our collective consciousness.
And the thing is like I was even believing it for a while there,
right?
And I'm a pretty rational person, and
yeah, I know.
So it's very frustrating because it took me a while to come around, but at the same time, the narrative is set up in such a way to where it's like you're crazy if you think the other way around.
I think that nowadays there are less and less people that respond that way. Believe it or not, I really do. I really think that more and more people are just like, yeah, you're right. It makes total sense, and they're just completely baffled. Maybe 10 years ago, you would be shamed and scapegoated and attacked.
Well, it's still happening, but not as much.
For your belief system or for, understanding things like physics, But, and the fact, and all the stuff that happens when you...
Well, when you have one side of the narrative suppressed and told and being told that it's a conspiracy theory. By the way, conspiracy theory is a phrase and a term that the CIA invented.
Right.
Right. So they're masters.
It's a double mindfuck.
It is.
Really
They're masters at the mindfuck.
They really are, and you just have to you just have to walk into every situation in life, no matter how banal that situation is. Whether you're just having like drinks with your girlfriends at the bar, whether you're going to your bullshit job, or whether you're dealing with like serious covert operations in our government. Every situation is a total mindfuck, and it is a double entendre. And if you walk into it knowing that, then you can go, yeah, okay, I can't really be hurt by this. And I think that's what sets us apart from a lot of people who believe the same kind of things, we believe, and they espouse the same kind of things we espouse, is that I'm listening to them and I'm watching them and they're really hurt by this.
And they're freaked
really
out
affected.
Or they're hurt.
They're really, like the couple in Austin, Texas, that,
where everything is just oh my God, it's...
Right.
The sky is falling.
Yeah, they're super afraid. They're really deeply concerned and affected by this, whereas we say the same things they say, but we also are like, yeah, but we're so confident in our own brains and in our own minds and in our own way that we live that it's like, yeah, okay, this is
the way it is,
this
and
is
that
the
you
way
have
it
to,
is, and
you have to be very in the moment about it, right? You can't just let it affect you. You have to go, well, okay, so how do I work around this, or it is what it is, and I will be here, and in the moment,
right,
and
exactly,
and again, there is no answer.
Right,
there is no answer, and so you have to come up with your own answer, and this is part of the reason we're doing this, and now we're heading up on an hour. So if you've stayed with us this long, I'm hoping that you get that, 2020 and the years to come in the next decade are going to be about self-preservation through being in touch with yourself and being in the moment, but also being in touch and in conversation and community with your community.
Yeah, and understanding that a lot of what you see on social media now has replaced the propaganda that used to come through the TV.
Mm-hmm.
Social media has now replaced it. And you notice that all the candidates, they're hardly on TV. They're mostly on social media. And they're all playing a part.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's Tulsi Gabbard doing squats in the stairwell, pretending to be like an everyday girl, or whether it's Pete Buttigieg eating a hamburger, in the middle of the country, or Bernie Sanders hugging, a young student or whatever. You're basically watching theater. You're watching theater. And it's all done through social media now. So social media has taken over what mainstream media used to be. Mainstream media is now just, a shit show out there in that other realm, and social media has now taken over. It's like this giant pervasive manner in which we absorb all of everything. But it's all theater.
When you said they're playing these roles, it made me think of it's like sort of an updated version of reality television.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas everybody has this role and this persona that they have to espouse.
Sure.
And they act according to that persona, and so it is all for show.
Right. It's all for show.
And it's all scripted out, it feels like, anyway.
Yeah. I cannot even believe for 1 minute that anybody in this country would think that anything that goes on in our electoral process is legitimate. Like, have you lost your mind? Have you lost your brain? It's just not real. The only thing that is real is... The only thing that is legitimate is you knocking on your neighbor's door and saying, hey, let's pass the basket around and see if we can get some new pipes for Flint, Michigan. And get some new pipes installed, or let's make sure that good pipes are installed in our area so that we don't become Flint, Michigan. Or, hey, this family's house over here needs a new water heater, and they've got 6 kids living in 3 rooms. Let's go.
And it starts with not necessarily...
Don't give your money to the politicians.
Right. And
give your money to each other.
Right, and it starts hyper-locally. So
hyper-locally.
Yeah, so don't worry about Flint yet.
Yeah,
worry about your own community, and the way you do that is you start with a block party.
Yeah.
You start with a block party and you meet the people that you live around. That's the thing you need to start doing, and start talking to each other and comparing notes, because it's easy to have, and we've seen it around here because we live even though we're 15 minutes by bus away from a major metropolitan city. We live in a town just outside the city limit that's really a small town.
It's ridiculous.
And in more ways than one.
It's like Mayberry on crack.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's so weird here.
But it's very strange. And we didn't expect that. We thought we were moving into a neighborhood of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I still am in a complete denial about where we live.
Yeah, exactly.
To my friends in San Francisco, I say, I just live in a neighborhood in Pittsburgh. Because
we do just operate out of this place now.
Yeah.
But what I guess I'm getting at is that there is a lot of prejudice and a lot of ignorance and a lot of hearsay.
But there's a lot of prejudice, ignorance, and hearsay in San Francisco,
there
too.
Is,
where there's a billionaire every 80 blocks.
Right, but here it feels like it's even more pervasive because it's a smaller community.
Oh, I see.
And in the way that you knock down those doors and those walls is you start talking to people instead of just holding on to your prejudice.
Right. Yeah.
Right? And that's where it starts. You have to start there in order to get past those preconceived notions about people. And those who don't participate, fine. Just they'll come around or they never will come around. But you have to make the effort to get together so that then you can start talking about what it is your neighborhood, what it is your community, what it is your city, what it is your county, your state, etc. needs.
Really needs.
And you have to start, it has to be hyper-local first, and so that you can work together to fix the things that you can fix, because if you take on too big of a project, it's overwhelming.
Right.
The smallest things are hard enough as it is.
Right, exactly. That's what people need to do in 2020, and that's where people need to start turning away from the theater of all of these people that are worth millions and billions of dollars. I could care less what Michael Bloomberg said the other day.
Right.
I could really give a shit less what Donald Trump says. I could care less about Andrew Yang. All these candidates have a lot of money. But the person that I am interested in hearing from is the guy that lives around the corner from us who has a barbershop. He's a black guy. He's got pictures all over his wall of the past. And it's like going into a little museum inside his barbershop where he takes care of his community. And he comes from a really interesting background. You know, that's the kind of people that I would like to see more podcasters talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're Jimmy Dore and you've got 10 million followers, or if you're Kyle Kalinske and you've got all these followers, I would like to see more people in your neighborhood doing interesting things on your show. I could care less what these billionaires and millionaires, I could care less what Greta does next week or whatever. I really would like to see more people on the ground being highlighted. There's very few podcasters out there that give a shit about what's going on right next door to them.
Right.
And it's really frustrating me. And I really hope that in 2020 we can see more of that
Mm-hmm.
and less of like the song and dance
Mm-hmm.
of politics.
Right. I agree. All right. Well, good luck in the new year. Good luck in the decade.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. If you really like our work, you can help support us on a regular basis by going to patreon.com/bookofhours. For as little as $2 a month, you can sustain us and keep us working. You can also make a one-time donation at paypal.me/bookofhours. Thank you.